Not knowing what has happened to a loved one who's gone missing is a nightmare that no one wants to live through. But it's a reality that occurs on a daily basis all over the world. But what must be more frustrating is when CCTV footage of the missing person is found, but it does nothing to help track them down. Number 10. In April of 2022, 45-year-old Laura Hubner had definitely earned a holiday. Her mother had passed away just a few months prior, and she'd been working 3 different jobs to keep her head above water. She contacted her friend Danica Wright and told her that she was planning on traveling to Victoria from Regina in Saskatchewan to get away from her responsibilities for a while, and to just unwind while she was there. She boarded her plane on the 4th of April and told her family and friends that she'd be home on the 28th. She also mentioned that she was planning on meeting up with a man, though no one close to her knew that she'd been in contact with him or who he even was. The last communication that anyone had with Laura was on the 24th, the day after she'd arrived in Victoria. She sent a photo to her father of a sailboat that she and the man were on, and added that he had taken her out on the water for a date. When she didn't return on the 28th as planned, her family started to worry, since it was out of character for Laura to be out of touch and not let them know what her plans were. They knew she didn't intend to stay in Victoria, since she'd been working on costume designs for a film that was being shot in the summer, and was very excited to continue. They contacted the Royal Canadian Mounted Police on the 29th of April and reported her as missing. They were able to find footage of Laura when she arrived in Victoria, but she wasn't seen again after that, and last contacted her family when she sent the photo from the sailboat. Her father, Harry, then posted that photo online, and many people responded, saying that the area around it looked like Nanaimo, and he relayed this information to the RCMP. They were able to track the boat to that area, and it was towed to a dock where it was guarded by police. At the time, they declined to say that this was the boat that they were looking for, and instead only revealed that they believed Laura was still in the Nanaimo area. They also didn't reveal how they came to this conclusion. Her family started to fear the worst when they received news that a body had been found in the Protection Island area. They were dismayed, but were later informed that it belonged to a man who'd fallen in from his sailboat during a drunken argument with a woman. It was later confirmed that Laura never boarded her plane home, leading many people to believe that she may have met with foul play, since she'd not reached out to her family or friends since the day that she vanished. Her social media pages, as well as her bank accounts, have been monitored, but have not seen any activity, causing investigators and her family even more concern, since she would have accessed her bank account to buy necessities if she'd merely decided to stay in Nanaimo of her own accord. Anyone who has any information on this case is asked to contact the Nanaimo RCMP non-emergency line at 250-754-2345. Number 9. Thanks to CCTV footage from the restaurant, it's known that 29-year-old Michael McClain, who hails from Manchester and Nashua, New Hampshire, visited a McDonald's on the 20th of April 2019, but he's been missing ever since, and his whereabouts still remain unknown. Michael originally hailed from Stamford, Connecticut, but graduated from Mount Washington College in Manchester, having studied criminal justice and earning a bachelor's degree. He was sharing an apartment with one roommate, and at the time was working with a non-profit organization that looks after autistic children. His family has stated that on the night of the 20th of April, he'd gone out with a few of his friends, and the group traveled to the Tropical Lounge nightclub where they had a few drinks together. But at some point during the night, a fight broke out between a woman that Michael knew and another that he hadn't met. He tried to step in to de-escalate the situation when the fight spilled out into the parking lot, but he was unable to do so. This happened at around 1:30 a.m., and someone in the club decided to call the police, who arrived about 15 minutes later. A crowd had formed outside the establishment, but dispersed when officers arrived on the scene. But as the crowd thinned, Michael's friends realized that he wasn't with them, and according to them, they started searching for him, but couldn't find him anywhere in the area. They waited at the club for another 45 minutes, after which they decided to leave. That's when the case took a sinister turn. At around 2 a.m., Michael phoned his boss, clearly distressed, and told her that someone was after him. He made sure to say that more than one person was chasing him, but he didn't identify them, likely because he didn't know who they were. He then hung up, and when his boss returned the call, they got no answer. Next, he sent a series of text messages to his neighbor. The first reading "Help, LOL, hour." He then texted "What stood aloof," followed by "Eldridge bro." He was caught on CCTV cameras at a McDonald's on East Hollis Street at 2:30 a.m., and as he exited the parking garage at the River Landing apartment complex on Bancroft Street, where he was seen exiting the garage at the rear of the property. When he didn't show up for work the following day, he was reported as missing and has not been seen or heard from since. His car was still parked on Orange Street where he left it at a friend's house that night, and it was concluded that he hadn't been back to the vehicle before disappearing. Michael's family tried in vain to get in touch with him over the phone and made several appeals to the public to come forward if they'd seen him or knew what happened to him that night. His cell phone was last active at around 2 a.m. in the area of the McDonald's where he was spotted, but has since been turned off. A witness would later report that they heard someone calling for help that night, and that it sounded like it was coming from the Hudson side of the Merrimack River, but it isn't known whether this is connected to Michael's disappearance. Anyone who has seen Michael, or has information that can help lead to his whereabouts, is urged to contact the Nashua Police Department at 603-594-3500. Number 8. Investigators trying to solve the disappearance of 59-year-old Diane Augat thought at first that it was a simple missing person case, until some strange details started coming to light, and now they believe she may be a victim of foul play. Diane, a New York native, moved to Tampa, Florida with her family when she was still young. As an adult, she and her husband Frederick had 3 children, and she became a stay-at-home mom, looking after the children, and according to her friends and family, taking great pride in keeping their house neat and tidy. But in the 1980s, she started acting strangely, and she was diagnosed with manic depression, for which she started taking medication. But she didn't like taking the pills, and at times would suffer setbacks when she refused to. Unfortunately, this led to the couple's children being removed from the home, and in 1991, she and Frederick got divorced. He was given custody of the children, something that Diane was sent over the edge about. For the next few years, she would spend stints in jail and mental health facilities. She started talking to herself and associating with less than savory people, and according to her family, she'd spend time with anyone who pretended to be her friend. After being sent to mental health facilities as many as 32 times, she was eventually released into the care of her family, but they felt that she should never have been released since her condition was still a problem and only getting worse. 2 weeks after this happened, Diane was living with her sister in Hudson, and on the morning of the 10th of April, 1998, her sister left the house to go to a doctor's appointment. She returned to the house later that day, but discovered that Diane wasn't there. Witnesses reported seeing her walking along Cobblestone Drive at around 11 a.m., and she then walked to Hayloft Tavern. Here, she had several drinks and was eventually asked to leave when she started walking in circles. She never returned home and was reported missing the following day. Searches of the area proved fruitless, but on the 15th of April, her mother received a voicemail from Diane, the contents of which vary by source. Some reports state that she said, "Help, help, let me out," while others say that she simply said, "Help," before the phone was taken from her by an unknown person, who could then be heard saying, "Hey, give me that." Diane's middle finger would later be found on the side of U.S. Highway 19 and New York Avenue, and later on, a bag containing her clothes was found. The clothes were neatly folded before the bag was placed in an outside freezer in Odessa. Another bag, also containing some of her clothes, would be found in 2000 in a Circle K store in Pasco, Florida. It also contained some of her makeup, toothpaste, and perfume. A man named Gary Robert Evers was named as a person of interest in the case, but his involvement was never proven, and he has since passed away, leaving Diane's fate a mystery that may never be solved. Number 7. In February of 2013, 54-year-old Jillian Sarahs was an employee at Waitrose Supermarket in Guernsey on the Channel Islands when she suddenly and inexplicably disappeared. It would later be reported that she was last seen at her house, which was located on Victoria Avenue, at around 6:15 on the 1st of January. A few days after she had vanished, 2 separate sets of witnesses reported that they'd seen Jillian near the Yacht Inn, which is located in St. Peter Port and close to the Space Youth Center on 2 separate occasions, days apart. These witnesses didn't come forward voluntarily, but relayed this information to officers who'd stopped as many as 100 vehicles and spoke to cyclists, joggers, and walkers in the area of Victoria Avenue and La Banque. Both those areas were searched thoroughly, but no sign of Jillian was found. Later on, investigators would release CCTV images that were found of Jillian, as she did some shopping at an Alliance supermarket in Bay Road at around 8:20 a.m. on the 1st of February of that year. The footage was recorded about 10 hours before she disappeared, and shows her completely relaxed and in no way under any kind of duress. She was seen wearing a green coat with fur trim, and it's believed that she had it on when she went missing. When the search effort to find Jillian didn't turn up any new leads, the authorities decided to search the ponds and other bodies of water in the area of Vale Parish, but they were unable to find anything of use. Several other agencies, including the Civil Protection Volunteers and Channel Islands Air Search, joined in the search effort, and a helicopter was brought in to search from the air, but not a single clue was uncovered. It's known that Jillian was in the St. Sampson area, known locally as the Bridge, at some point before she went missing, but that area was also searched without any positive results. With no further leads to investigate, the Guernsey police asked that residents check their CCTV cameras and dash cams in case they recorded footage of Jillian after she vanished, but unfortunately no new footage was ever reported. Investigators have since stated that they believe Jillian never left the island, since her passport and other travel documents were found in her house. Her family made several appeals for information with anyone to come forward, but the case remains unsolved 12 years later. If you have any information that can help bring this case to a close, you're asked to contact the police at 725-111. Number 6. Many people feel that the last recorded CCTV footage of 18-year-old Samantha Koenig, who was abducted by serial killer Israel Keyes, is the most disturbing that they've ever seen, as it's now known that he ended her life shortly after the footage was recorded. On the 12th of February, 2018, Samantha was working as a barista at the Common Grounds Espresso coffee kiosk in Anchorage, Alaska. She was alone in the kiosk, and at around 8 p.m. that night, Keyes ordered a cup of coffee at the window. Samantha could be seen preparing his order and placing it in front of him, but suddenly her demeanor changed as it became obvious he'd said something to her that took her off guard. She was then seen putting her hands in the air and backing away as he produced a firearm and demanded that she hand over all the money that was in the cash register. He then told her to turn off the kiosk's lights, which she did, and he then entered via the window. He proceeded to tie her hands with zip ties, and after ensuring that no one else was around, walked her out of the kiosk. Investigators believe that Samantha then realized she was in real trouble, since she initially probably thought Keyes was just going to rob the place, and up to that point she'd cooperated with his requests. But as soon as they exited the shop, he made one last effort to get away. She broke free from his grasp and ran a short distance, but he caught up with her and tackled her to the ground. He pointed the firearm at her, telling her that the ammunition he was going to use was very quiet and that no one would notice if he pulled the trigger. He then reminded her not to try anything like that again, as he would end her life if she did. After leading her back to his car, he placed her inside and drove to his house. He had taken her cell phone and ATM card, ensuring that she had no way to contact anyone for help. He would later demand a ransom of $30,000 from her family, but unbeknownst to them, he'd already ended her life by this point. Following this, he drove to a frozen lake where he cut a hole in the ice and disposed of Samantha's body. Unfortunately, the footage taken from the kiosk was of little help in the subsequent investigation since it was of such poor quality. Police officers looking into Samantha's disappearance couldn't make out Keyes' facial features or the registration number of his vehicle due to the blurriness of the footage. But he would later be arrested after using Samantha's stolen debit card, and he confessed to ending her life and the lives of at least 6 other people. He declined to elaborate on any of the other victims and tried to play mind games while being questioned, telling investigators that he wanted better shoes and that they should allow him to read the newspapers every day. While on trial, he managed to break free from his restraints and tried to escape, but he was quickly apprehended. It's known that he also made other plans to escape from prison, but he never got the chance as he passed away while in custody. It's believed that Israel carried out similar crimes in Hawaii, Canada, and Mexico, but it's the crime that he committed in his hometown that served as his downfall. Number 5. On the 26th of May, 2018, 21-year-old Sophia McKenna and her 20-year-old friend Spencer Mugford had made plans to spend that part of the Memorial Day weekend paddling out to the New London Ledge Lighthouse, which is situated in Connecticut. At the time, Spencer was a student at the University of Connecticut, and the pair drove to the Avery Point campus, where he then picked up a sunfish sailboat that had no mast. They then made their way to the coast and started paddling towards the lighthouse at around 2 a.m., as evidenced by a video that Sophia recorded on Spencer's phone. She posted the video to her Snapchat account and could be heard excitedly talking about being out in the ocean. She then turned the camera around to show the lights shining on the shore. She then pointed out the lighthouse in the distance, saying that they were almost there, and could be heard playfully telling Spencer to hurry up. They definitely made it to the lighthouse, since Spencer then posted a photo of Sophia at 2 a.m., which showed her standing in front of a no trespassing sign. But neither Sophia nor Spencer returned home, and when their families couldn't get a hold of them the next day, they were reported as missing. Sophia's mother would later report that she received missed calls on her phone at 2:05 and 2:09 that night from a number that she didn't recognize. It would later be determined that this was Spencer's number. It's believed that the pair had somehow gotten into trouble out on the water at this point, and that Sophia had tried to call her mother, but inexplicably never dialed 911. Both Sophia and Spencer missed important engagements the following day, and their families started to worry that something had happened to them while they were out on the ocean. Thanks to Snapchat posts, the Coast Guard knew where to start searching, and at the lighthouse they found Spencer's t-shirt tied to a shoe, and it's now believed that the shirt was used to tie the boat down. The sailboat was found close to Truman's Beach, about 13 miles from the lighthouse, and unfortunately, on the 8th of June, a fisherman spotted something in the water close to North Dumping Island, and when he investigated, he realized it was a body. The police were called in, and it was determined that it was Spencer, and that he had drowned. In the days and weeks that followed, several searches were conducted to try and find Sophia, but not a single clue was found, leading to a lot of speculation. One of the more mysterious aspects of this case is the fact that Sophia phoned her mother twice, but never dialed 911. But there may be a good reason for that. It's been suggested that as the pair decided to paddle back to shore, the boat had somehow come undone and started drifting away from the lighthouse. Spencer may have then entered the water, since Sophia was known to not be a strong swimmer, and then got into trouble. While this was happening, Sophia may have attempted to contact her mother to tell her what was happening. Realizing that Spencer was struggling, she may have jumped into the water to try to save him, and never got the chance to call 911. Sophia's case has never been solved, but it remains an open investigation, and anyone who has any additional information is asked to contact the Connecticut State Police at 860-848-6500. Number 4. CCTV footage that was found after 23-year-old Brendan Volnov went missing shows him being pursued by several other men and then abducted. The incident occurred at around 10:30 p.m. on the 31st of March 2015 at his house on Cox Street in South Windsor, Sydney, Australia. In the footage, which was recorded by a camera outside of his house, Brendan can be seen arriving at the property in a friend's car, a white station wagon, at speed. His friend drives onto the driveway, and a few seconds later, a group of men run onto the property in pursuit. As soon as the vehicle stops, Brendan and the other driver jump out and run into the property's backyard, while another passenger in the back of the car is told to stay put by one of the other men. It would later come to light that while they were out of view of the camera, the group of men assaulted Brendan before bringing him back to their vehicle, a white hatchback, and abducting him. The case was investigated by officers involved in the strike force Orinder, and after footage of the attack was released to the public, several leads were received. But they also pointed out that those who knew Brendan knew that he was involved with the sale of prohibited substances, and that the men were likely after him after a deal had gone wrong. Appeals were made to the public in an effort to identify the car, which was believed to be a Hyundai i30 or a similar model. but due to the grainy quality of the footage, neither it nor the group of men was recognized. Investigators appealed to panel beaters in the area to be on the lookout for the vehicle, since it was believed that the two cars had collided during the chase, causing damage to the hatchback's front driver's side panel. They also added that the car may have been rented and asked all rental companies to contact them if they had any of their vehicles or similar models returned with this type of damage. Witnesses described seeing the car speeding along Cox Street at 10:30 that night, but were unable to identify the driver or any of the passengers. When the scene was processed, investigators became even more concerned for Brendan's well-being after biological material was found in his shed. They believed the assault on him and his passenger lasted for about a minute before Brendan was taken away. Eventually, 4 men were identified as being part of the group, and they were taken into custody, but provided very few details on what happened that night and didn't disclose what happened after they left Brendan's house. 36-year-old Jamie Tilley, 28-year-old Jack Davies, 28-year-old William Thomas, and 27-year-old Mitchell Bentley were charged with ending Brendan's life, but they pleaded not guilty when the case eventually went to trial. They admitted to the assault, but claimed that they didn't end Brendan's life. But they did reveal that they'd been acting in self-defense when the attack took place, since Brendan had pointed a firearm at them. They added that Brendan owed them money and had refused to pay, contributing further to the attack. The trial lasted for 5 weeks, and the jury took 3 weeks to reach their verdict, deciding that there wasn't enough proof to show that the group had ended Brendan's life, and the case ended in a hung jury. Brendan has never been located, and investigators have asked anyone with additional information to contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-333-000. Number 3. There's been much debate online over the years about footage that surfaced after 26-year-old Jacob Edris went missing. Some believe it shows him being chased through a forest, while others think the footage has been faked, but neither of these theories has been proven as true. What is certain is that Jacob decided to go on a solo camping trip on the 14th of November, 2017. He traveled to the woods outside Bend in Oregon, where he set up his camp, but then promptly and mysteriously disappeared. When he didn't return home as planned, his family reported him as missing, and searches were conducted, but no sign of Jacob was found. According to some sources, his camera was later found in the woods, showing a harrowing night that led to his disappearance. The first piece of footage showed him arriving at the campsite and setting up his tent with his white car parked just a few feet away. Next, it showed Jacob in his tent late at night after he heard a strange sound outside. He decided to record whatever was about to happen, clearly terrified, and can be heard explaining that he heard someone walking around right outside his tent. He can also be heard yelling for whoever is out there to leave him alone, and by this point he sounds truly scared. But the footsteps outside continue, along with the sounds of rocks being banged against each other. Unnervingly, someone can then be seen walking right up to the tent and trying to undo the zipper at the front, and that's when Jacob decided to make a break for it. The footage then shows him running through the woods in the darkness with only the camera's light to guide his way, since he dropped his flashlight in a panic. As he then turns around, a pale white figure emerges from the darkness before the footage cuts out. At his campsite, investigators found his car, tent, and other camping gear, along with his camera, but he was nowhere to be seen. Needless to say, the footage caused quite a stir online over the years, since it was never confirmed whether it was recorded by Jacob or if it was completely unrelated to his disappearance. But investigators have confirmed that he was carrying a black backpack with him, and was possibly riding a gray Granite Peak bicycle at the time that he went missing. The last time that he was seen was at a Walgreens on River Road in Eugene, Oregon, and at the time he was wearing a gray sweatshirt, blue jeans, and a black baseball hat with a brown brim. Those who've watched the footage have come up with many questions about the case, including suggestions that he was abducted by someone who'd been stalking him, but this has never been proven. Others questioned why he chose to run into the woods rather than take shelter in his car that was parked mere feet from his tent. But it's been pointed out that he was likely in a state of panic and probably couldn't locate his keys. But many others feel that this footage has been faked and that it has nothing to do with Jacob's case. They believe he simply got lost in the woods or sustained an injury that left him unable to return to his campsite or civilization. If you know what happened to Jacob, you're asked to contact the Lane County Sheriff's Office at 541-682-4150. Number 2. 80-year-old Brian Fletcher has been missing from Tockholes in Lancashire, England since the 22nd of March, 2025, and his family and investigators are desperate to find any trace of him, as they're increasingly concerned for his safety and well-being. Brian, who hails from Bury, traveled to Tockholes, which is about 20 miles from his house, in the early morning that day, and stated that he was planning on going for a walk in the area, as he was known to do on occasion. He was seen in the area at around 1 p.m. that afternoon, but after setting out on his walk, mysteriously vanished and has not been seen or heard from since. The subsequent search resulted in CCTV footage being found, showing Brian wearing a blue jumper, cargo pants, and a tan-colored hat. When he failed to return home later that day, he was reported as missing, and a massive search was started. Search dogs were brought in to try and find Brian's scent, but they were unable to do so. Mounted officers helped scour the area, and nearby bodies of water were searched by dive teams, but they were unable to find any trace of Brian or the clothing that he was last seen wearing. His car, a gray Citroen C4 Cactus, was found parked on the A675 close to Tockholes Road during the search, but the vehicle didn't contain any further clues as to which direction Brian might have walked in. The CCTV image was released to the public in hopes that someone would remember seeing Brian after his disappearance, but so far no one has come forward with information, and searches are still ongoing to try and locate him. Given his age, every passing day is crucial in the investigation, since Brian may be struggling to fight against the elements, and he's described as being vulnerable. He's also known to often visit the higher and lower Hoddlesworth Reservoir areas, but he's not been located there. Residents in the area and people who drove there on that day have been asked to check their dash cams and CCTV footage. If footage can be found showing Brian walking in a specific direction, it'll help determine which areas should be searched next, and hopefully this will lead to Brian being located. They've specifically asked for footage between 1:30 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. to be checked, since it's known that he was walking in the area at those times. Searchers have had a tough time since conditions have been less than ideal, with foggy and wet weather setting in. But this has only increased concerns over Brian's health, since he was dressed lightly when he set out for his walk, and the risk of hypothermia is very real. The search area was extended, but so far nothing of use has been found. While searches continue, a description of Brian has been made available. If you or anyone you know have seen Brian or have any idea where he might be, you're asked to contact emergency services on 999. Number 1. 56-year-old Michael Gaine is yet another person who's gone missing this year, and since searches for him have been unsuccessful, a CCTV image of him has been made available to the public in hopes that it'll result in new leads being received. Michael, better known to his friends and family as Mike, is a sheep farmer from Kinmare in County Kerry, Ireland. He was spotted in town in Kinmare just before 10 a.m. on the 20th of March 2025, but then suddenly vanished without a trace. In CCTV footage that was later found, he was spotted in a Centra store in Kenmare, where he could then be seen buying credit for his phone at around 9:50 a.m. He seemed to be in good spirits in the still image that's been released, and just seems to be going about his day with nothing unusual being found in the footage. When his family and friends realized that he'd gone missing, they contacted the police and filed a missing person report, and searches were immediately started. When he could not be located in town or the areas surrounding his property, the search effort shifted to his farm, which is located in Carrig East. A digger was brought in to search certain areas while slurry tanks were being emptied, and witnesses from the surrounding area reported that the property was inundated with members of the police who were desperate to learn where Michael disappeared to. They've revealed that the search of the property has been challenging, since it contains several different slurry pits and outbuildings that also need to be searched thoroughly. But they've continued unabated, since they've not ruled out any possibilities. CCTV footage from the surrounding area is being analyzed in hopes that it'll show Michael walking in the area, and if such footage is found, it may lead to a break in the case, since it could reduce the areas that need to be searched. Members of the public have reached out to the police, stating that they're willing to volunteer in the search effort at the farm, but they've been told that no public assistance is needed at this time, and that they'll likely be informed if anything new is discovered. Nevertheless, members of the surrounding community have formed groups of searchers and have been scouring the area of Mall's Gap in hopes that a clue or witnesses could be found there, but so far their efforts have not paid off. Those who are not involved in the search effort have provided searchers with food and drinks, as more than 250 people are now actively looking for Mike, and they're hopeful that he will eventually be tracked down. According to some sources, Mike's farm is on a huge piece of land, and hence it'll take some time to search the entire property. But investigators have vowed not to stop looking until every possible avenue has been exhausted. If you have footage of Mike from after he disappeared, or have any information to contribute, you're asked to contact the Killarney Garda Station at 064-667-1160. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.